We've had an absolutely fantastic Ostmine conference. Over 1,200 delegates. We've had a world-class lineup of speakers and exhibitors who were part of this event. And I look forward to seeing you in 2021 in Perth.
Hello and good morning. My name is Francisco Malta from VM Industrials. I'm representing the Aderco Group, a fuel additive manufacturer today, and I have a presentation I would like to share with you. Let me just find my screen to share here. Here we go. Right, high stakes fuel additives. Is it an engineering tool or is it a commodity? And so by the end of this presentation, what I'd like to achieve is that you would regard this as too high a stake to just be a commodity. And in fact, this product should become an engineering tool and a... So did you know that only 6% of businesses remain in control of their supply chain? This applies also to fuel manufacturers. And I'm not suggesting here that you should source your own fuel, but I am suggesting that you can keep control over the performance of that fuel, and that's essential. When we consider that a fuel additive will deliver anywhere between 2.5% and 5% fuel efficiency, if you're running a $100 million bill a year, that's 2.5 million to 5 million you could bank. And if you're operating a 10 million, that's $250 to $500,000 you could bank without doing anything but using a fuel additive. But if I were to tell you that in fact that's only the peak of the iceberg, and it's a much bigger return on investment when you use the right additive. There's OPEX improvements which are all multiple and continue to multiply. So what I will show you throughout this presentation is some of that evidence that will drive you to think as we believe things should be. Aderco Group has 39 years, one focus. It was founded in 1981 in Canada. What we do is find issues with fuels and resolve them. So we're always on the lookout for changes in how the industry is developing. We have a number of different industries we look at. We have shipping, we have power generation, we have mining, retail, premium fuels, and a number of other fuels. Today, we're treating 40 billion liters of fuel per year. That's about 3/4 of the fuel consumption of the Australian market, to give you an indication. Now, Alcoa is a company for bauxite mining, a well-known mining group, 130 years in the industry, and was established in Australia in 1961. We've been working with Alcoa for many years in Guinea, in Africa. And we've been delivering some very fine results with the fuels that were available and still are available in that region. When we approached Alcoa Group in West Australia, there was a little bit of reluctance and by the engineers. In fact, they felt that the issues that we would see in Africa were nowhere near things that they would come across in Australia. So they were a bit reluctant to think that we could bring those benefits. In fact, we had already done quite a bit of work, quite a bit of studies and quite a few trials in advance in Australia to know that we were going to be able to deliver our claims. And Alcoa, thank you very much for allowing us to share the findings that we've done together over the last 3 years. So this Westtrac engine dyno was an engine taken from the Huntly mine, a Cat 3516 with 22,000 hours. So this engine is reaching the end of its life. And we took fuel from the mine itself and we treated it there. So the fuels are then separated and taken to the Westtrac dyno. Very quickly, we saw an improvement in the horsepower delivery of the engine and the torque. Even though this engine was quite old, it improved quite dramatically, almost by 100 horsepower. The conclusion from the Alcoa division was that the fuel efficiency looked like it would be a 3.6% improvement, and the increased exhaust temperatures at lower loads would then indicate less carbon fouling and reduced lube oil and those OPEXs that we talk about. So everything sort of indicated towards what we claim is that we maintain that optimal operation for the machinery during its time between services, so we don't drop out in performance. And all this is just by having the fuel in a condition where it can deliver. The other aspect which was quite telling was that the engine was struggling. You can see this line is full of little curves, and it's not linear. But so the engine is at full load, but it's struggling to stay stable. It's quite unstable. Once we've treated it with the Aderco treated fuel, you can see that line has flattened out completely. And this is stability in the fuel. So therefore, it's a much, it's reducing the workload on the engine because the combustion is easier to achieve. The next stage was Alcoa wanted to trial on the mine itself. And this is much more difficult, of course, because on a static dyno, we can get results rather quickly. But in this situation, they needed to contact, and they eventually contracted a company called CASCADIA Scientific based in Vancouver. CASCADIA Scientific operate software as a service, and they go through quite a lot of complex modeling. And this was just the platform where they were picking up all this information. So CASCADIA was picking up the GPS, fuel meterage, altitude, loaded altitude, payloads, and they're utilizing models, linear regression and gradient boosted, to repeat cycles until they get to a point where they have margin of error of fuel efficiency less than 0.5%. This was quite a painstaking process. It took 3 months to achieve that baseline and establish that. Afterwards, the teams were split into two. So half of the fleet was put on the Aderco treated fuel, and with the cam locks that were specific, so we wouldn't have any cross-contamination of the fuels. And this then had to operate until they reached that 0.5% of margin of error of fuel efficiency between the two teams. And the outcome was exactly as we suggested, within that 2.5 and 5, but very close to the 5, a 4.8% fuel efficiency. And this was a fantastic result for us and for, I believe, Alcoa. Now, when we look at the supply chain of ultra low sulfur fuels, whatever or wherever the supplier is buying their fuel from is pretty much the same as everyone else. You know, there is really no point of difference, because it's being produced from many different feedstocks, many different refineries, and many different crudes from all these regions, and then it's being blended. So your supplier is the same. You're just deciding on which brand or which price you're prepared to pay. Where things do make a point of difference and things start to change is when your supplier is actually additizing the fuel. So they are doing as we are, trying to deal with those instabilities in the fuel. However, if you allow the supplier to make that decision for you with the additive, you never really have full control, I guess, of understanding what that additive is, but you may get some of those benefits. When we come back to why we regard this as an important tool, is when 4.8% is just the tip of the iceberg, and it's already quite a return on investment. Shouldn't you be doing that treatment yourselves to have control of that product, to be able to quantify it against other products and be able to understand where one mine's doing better than another when you have the additive, when you don't have the additive? And you could go on and collect all this data. But however, even if that 4.8% is just the tip of the iceberg, consider that there's so much more to be had, all the other OPEX improvements. And so if you are operating, let's say as an Alcoa, that you've got multiple geography mines, if you have control of that additive, as the fuel is pretty much the same globally, you can and you will be able to consistently get that performance. So finally, I asked the question to see if are the stakes too high. So have we shown you that the stakes are just too high for this not to be regarded as a standalone engineering tool? I'm available throughout the conference. If anyone would like to contact me, please feel free. And thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy your rest of the time at the conference.
We've had an absolutely fantastic Ostmine conference. Over 1,200 delegates. We've had a world-class lineup of speakers and exhibitors who were part of this event. And I look forward to seeing you in 2021 in Perth.